Welcome to the First Customers Podcast. Today we have Richard White with us. He is the CEO of Fathom, which is the #1 app on the HubSpot and Zoom marketplaces. And Richard's previous company, User Voice, reached 10 million in revenue over 10 years. Richard, thank you so much for making time for us. Welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me.
So you've got great experience starting and growing companies. How'd you get those very first customers?
Whether it's been with User Voice or Fathom, or even when I was like a freelancer before, I think I've used the same strategy for all three, which is I give away something for free. And usually I give away a lot of something for free. I remember when I used to be a product designer, and I would come in and do a free hour with anyone and show me something you want to have designed. I'll give you some mock-ups. I'll give you some feedback on something. And so it was just I think in sales, they call this give, get, right? Like you got to give something to get something, right? User Voice, we had a completely free product for the first year. It was a product that would take all the feedback that came from your customers and organize it so you can understand what voices were most prominent. And we were very adamant about product should be completely free. And same thing with Fathom. Today, even to this day, it's completely free. And we actually committed that we will always make the core part of Fathom free.
Wow.
And then we've got add-ons that we charge on top of that. And that's just my thing. I think it's so hard to get people to adopt new tools and products, especially in software. There's so many that, asking them both to adopt something new and also pay me something immediately for it, I think is a really high bar, especially for things where they've never paid for something like it before, right? Fathom is something that joins all your Zoom meetings, your Google Meet meetings, records them, transcribes them, writes all the notes for you. It's super cool, but how many people have ever used a product like that before? Almost zero, because you really couldn't build this product before last year, right? And
Right.
So, if I'm asking someone to pay for something where it's here's a better hamburger, great, I should charge you money for it. But I'm asking to pay for something you've never bought before, I find it's actually a lot easier to just give you a taste of it for free, right? Give you a good free version, and then have an idea over time of how I'll add on other things into that I can upsell you onto. And I've just found that works really well, because I think actually the biggest challenge is not just finding your first customers, but finding the next ones. And if you give away something for free that's really good, it enables this really good word of mouth virality that you just don't get when it's a paid product.
Right. I think that's really interesting what you're saying about you're offering something that's new. And so it's kind of a new category. And you mean when you said that it wasn't even possible a year ago, is that because of the AI side of it, the interpretation of the calls and that kind of thing? Maybe explain a little bit about what Fathom does.
Yeah. So, in the last year, you've had such great strides in what you can do with AI that we can now give you, the meeting notes we can give you are probably as good as, or even I've a lot of people tell me they're better than the notes they would have written themselves, right? A lot better usually, right? And so that's only been possible in the last really 9 months. So yeah, that's kind of what I mean by that. But Fathom is it's a free AI note taker, right? So it's a app, you download it, install it on your computer, and then Fathom Note Taker bot joins your Zoom meeting, your Google Meet meeting, your Microsoft Teams meeting. In real time, it's recording, it's transcribing. Literally about 30 seconds after the call, so we try to make it really fast, you get these notes and you get the recording. And so you don't just get notes, you also get notes of you can click on any line in those notes, it'll take you back to that part of that meeting. So it's really powerful if you want to share with someone on your team, hey, I just had a conversation with Paris, here's what he said, check this out, right? And so we've just find that it's completely changed. I don't write any notes anymore, and I try not to take in-person meetings, because I just try to get on Zoom, have a conversation with someone, and then I don't have to think anymore about it. I go to meet with them again 2 weeks later, I pull back up that summary and that recording, I'm take 2 minutes, review it. I'm right. It's like we just got off the call, right? So,
I love it. I use it pretty much every day.
Awesome.
Because if you just had tweaked a few things, you could have just a podcast production app, kind of like the one we're using now. But it seems like it's just a few little steps, and you could just produce a podcast from it.
Probably, yeah. There's probably something said for focusing on meetings or a little bit different than podcasts, but you're right. Technically speaking, probably just not that far away from it.
Yeah. Okay. You said that you like to give stuff away. What did you give away with User Voice, your first company?
I mean, we also had a completely free version to start,
Okay.
where the whole product was free. And I think in both these cases, we started off with not just like, people have freemium, where it's like free and then there's some paid plans. We actually went,
Right.
no, no, this thing is completely free. We're not going to try to charge you, which
Oh,
has some other challenges where people are like, what's the catch, right? Are you selling my data? So there's like no catch, right?
right.
We're here to prove out that we can build something people use every day. And I've always thought that if I can build a product you use every day, I can eventually sell you something on top of that you will pay for, right? Like the hard part is becoming part of someone's habit. So with User Voice, we gave away a free version, and then over time, in that case, we actually found that like, we started going up market. We started selling to companies like Netflix and Meta and Amazon, and then we
Okay.
discontinued the free version at some point because it's hard to sell something for 5-6 figures and also give away part of it free, right? Sometimes it's tough to have both, right? At least for that product it was. But
So
yeah,
it
for the
became
whole
more of
first
a
year it was free.
B2B enterprise product at
Yeah,
that
it
point.
became more of a B2B enterprise product, right?
Okay.
So we started off in that product. We started off on the like low end of the market and worked our way up, and eventually just deciding, this is actually a really good fit for like enterprise. Let's just focus exclusively on enterprise. Yeah.
So talk about the challenges of like, how do you stay alive? When you're starting out as a free product,
Yeah.
there's just that from the entrepreneur perspective, got to have some kind of funding in place. And there's that other side of kind of sales where you're selling investors or some kind of deal making has to happen just to get that
Yeah.
free thing made.
Yeah, this is why I think it's also a differentiator, because not everyone's willing to do it, right? It's like a big ask to be like, you're going to forego revenue for a period of time. Two different answers to that, right? User Voice was like the first real company I did. And, this was 15 years ago. I was, much younger man. I had much lower, quality of life. And so it was literally just, I think at the time we had raised a little bit of money, but mostly so we just kept our burn super low. Like all the folks on the team lived in the same building at one point, right? That was just a classic, like, we're just going to grind it out, and we're going to give away this thing for free, and we'll make money at some point, but our burn is so low. That's how we get around it. With Fathom, it's like, okay, I've done a startup before. It's a little easier to raise money this time around. And so I can kind of just do it like, okay, we're going to fund our way over the gap between free and monetization. But I think there's a lot of benefits to, so, it requires funding, or requires kind of like grit and being able to like keep your burn low to be able to do it and not have to charge,
Right.
which is why most people charge upfront. I do think though, like from a funding perspective, if you have a product, even if it doesn't have monetization, if you have a product that has really good engagement, you can generally find funding for it, right? The trick is, I
Yeah.
don't think most people know what good engagement is. They think like, I've got a few people, I've got 20, I've got 500 users. It's like, but are they using it every day? Right? Like that's the thing people get. It's like, I got 500 people signed up for my product. They use it every day. Like, and so I think if you have really good engagement metrics, I mean, before Fathom launched publicly, I think I had probably recruited like 800 people to sign up for the product. And it wasn't until the end where we got 50 people that use it day in, day out. Like I went through multiple cohorts of signups. And at the end of that beta period, I had like 50 people that use it day in, day out. And that's when I was like, okay, we have enough now to like launch this thing, right? We've proven that but we burned through probably 800 of my like closest network connections, tried it out at work, or it's buggy or whatnot, right?
Yeah.
So if you even have a product that's like really good, that just people, a small group of people, it could be 50, it could be a couple hundred that just use it every single day, you can probably find some pre-seed or seed funding for it. As long as you also have a story for like how this could get big one day. But yeah, so I think that's the trick, right? You've got to find a way to like, how do I build a business where I don't make any money for a year or two, right? But I think if you can build that, it's super, super powerful. It also allows you to really focus, right? Like it was really clarifying to the Fathom team that I'd say, hey guys, we're not going to try to monetize for a couple of years. We're going to stay really focused first on free user retention, like make sure people love, use this product day in, day out once we get them into it. Once we prove that, we're going to get really good at onboarding new folks, making the sign-up process really easy. Once we do that, we're going to focus a lot on how do we get people to like refer the product to other people. We're going to build this kind of like growth engine, right? And then once we have all those things working, then we'll come back and like think about how to monetize it. Because turns out like all of these disciplines, making a product that's got good retention, making a product that is easy to sign up for and use, figuring out monetization, these are all hard problems.
Right.
And the mistake I often see is like, when you try to do all of these at the same time, you're going to do a mediocre job at all of them. And to do a good startup, you have to be great at all those things, right? And so it's hard to be great at 4 things at once. You're much better to try to do it in sequence. Great. Let's get really great at retention. Great. Let's get really great at onboarding. Great. Let's get really great at this. And then, like I said, I think monetization in a lot of companies is honestly the easiest part. The hard part is finding a thing that people love, will refer to their friends, will use day in, day out. That's the hard part. Once you do that, there's, this was the concern about Facebook many years ago. I remember if you go back 15 years, people were like, they don't charge any money. It's free. Right. And then they rolled out their first ads in like early 2010s. Like, oh, they're not making that much money. I don't know, but I bet Mark Zuckerberg was never worried that they would be able to figure out how to make money. Right now, when they focus on it, they make gobs of money. Right. Because they have the key ingredients. They have products people love and are in every single day. And so I think, I know there's a lot of folks, there's a big strain of like startup advice. It's like, you got to charge money early so you know that people want the thing, right? So you get that validation. And that might be true, again, if you're building something where you're replacing something else that I'm already paying money for, right? But if you're trying to get someone to do something new that they've never done before, like use a social media app or use an AI note-taking tool, just the fact that you're using it is indication day in, day out is currency in some ways. In fact, I think it's even more powerful than they'd be willing to pay for it.
So during the time that you're focusing, you said like that first phase is totally, I guess, like user experience, engagement. How can we make it super useful and addictive for the person, for the potential users? What is the onboarding strategy there during that time period? Like, how do you get people to use it so that you can make sure that it is engaging, other than just your team using it yourselves? Talk about a little about that strategy. So that totally relates to the first customer aspect.
Yeah. So I think having really good sign-up process is important, but it's only important once you built the core product that like works well and people want to be in every day. So in the beginning, we focused everything on our onboarding is terrible. It's kind of crappy. Maybe I have to pull some levers in the app to make it work. Right. But I will handhold people through it. But I'll focus everything on once you are signed up, does it work? And by work, I mean, is it a really exciting product that you want to be in on a regular basis? And I think what a regular basis is going to depend on what your product is, right? For us, we're relevant when you're in meetings. You're probably in meetings every day. Maybe you're making a product that's relevant for financial planning. Well, how often do you financial planning? Maybe not every day. So maybe your metric is like, oh, someone should be on our app once a month because that's how often they do financial planning, right? So the cadence that you want kind of depends upon like the use case you're solving. But I focus on that first. And then you're right, which is how do I get folks to sign up for that is really messy, right? This is the like do unscalable things. One of the things I really like doing that we did for Fathom is there's some sites where you can, one's called like userinterviews.com. There's a few of them out there where you can actually say, hey, I'll pay $50 for 30 minutes for me to like, show you a product and get your feedback on it, to user research. And so I really like doing that. I'd have some ideas of like who I think an ideal user would be. Like, oh, it's a salesperson or it's a customer success person. Great. I'm going to go set up a campaign. I want to talk to 50 salespeople. And really, I'm just paying them to take a product demo with me. Right. I'm kind of using the veil of research. It is research on some level, but really what I'm doing is like, rather than trying to set up lead form and convince people to sign up for leads, and I'm saying, I will pay you money to take a demo and tell me what you think of this. And then afterwards, part of the call will be me explaining the product, see if you like it. If you do like it, I'm going to set it up for you on the call and then see if you use it afterwards. Right. And I'm actually, a big fan of using incentives like that to get to folks, right? Like we did a lot of things early on in Fathom where first time you use the product, we send you an email and say, we'll pay $25 if you jump on a call and tell us about your first experience with the product. Wow. And people love that stuff, right? Like, there's when you just ask, hey, give me feedback on it, people like don't. But when you say, I'll pay you $25, it tells us two things. One is that you value that feedback. Most companies don't. And so that people don't want to give it because like, why would I give it? You probably don't care. And you actually get something out of it. So again, it's kind of paradoxical, right? I'm prescribing a thing where like you don't charge any money and you actually spend money to like get people to sign up. But I think it's worked pretty well. The other thing we've done, or I've done, is the classic, like, I just go on LinkedIn, I go to all my connections, and I'm just in all my friends' inboxes and be like, hey, can I demo you any product? I do the same things if I'm not paying them $50, right? And then I do the thing at the end, and I do this for the research calls too. If they liked it, hey, do you have 2 or 3 other people that that you think would really benefit from this? And again, this works because it's free. If I was charging $50, no, they don't want to recommend. They're not like, I'm not going to rat out my 3 friends to pay $50. But if it's free, oh, it's a gift. Do you have to? What I'm saying is, like, do you have 3 friends that would also like this free gift? Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Right. And so that's the other way I've done it historically.
So let's look at the logistics of that earlier moment where you're having to pay people. Is this after you've gotten investment, or are you like just building up personal savings from your past career and you're saying, hey, here's my little war chest to spend on this instead of ads? And then how would you, if you haven't got investors yet, if you already had investors, how'd you sell it before, having enough users to have the data? Talk a little bit about that kind of timing and logistics around that.
Yeah, I think it's something like in lieu of ad spend, right?
Yeah.
Like, I think it's really easy to burn a lot of money quickly on ad spend and get very mediocre results. I would almost bet for most and ad spend is a thing where maybe 10 years ago there were some Northwest passages where you could find some keywords that were underutilized.
Yeah.
It's pretty saturated, right? So like,
Right.
I'm almost certain if you really know who you're going after, and you have a specific criteria, and you need to talk to 25 people, like, that's 25 people is a lot, actually, right? Like 25 people paying $25 a month, right? Like, or for a call, right? I'm pretty sure that's cheaper than actually trying to buy ads to get to 25 people, because you'll get to the wrong people. There's a lot of section bias sort of thing. So it does require you to
True.
have capital, right? It does require you to have some money to, like, have like a personal war chest, or you've got to raise a little money. But I don't think any investor would push back on it, right? Because I do think like it's a pretty savvy way. Again, I'm a B2B product, right? And I think, maybe if you're doing some consumer thing, maybe an ad thing's the best play. But early days, you'd be surprised by how much intel you can get from just like 25 good conversations.
That lines up with, I feel like I say this sentence just about every podcast, but it lines up with what we're hearing from lots of different entrepreneurs of how critical it is to talk to your customers or
That's the other
talk
thing,
to
right? Like,
prospects, your
yeah,
target audience.
you could buy a bunch of ads and they sign up, but now you have 2 problems, right? One is they're going to silently fail. You're not actually talking to them, so you don't get to see what worked or not. And 2, for that to work, you actually have a good sign up process. And I just said, like, I don't know if I want to invest in a sign up process that's really good until I've got a product that's really good to onboard you into, right? Sign up, it's an on ramp onto a freeway. Well, if the freeway's got gaps in it, let's work on the freeway. So that's why I think you skip directly the part you care about, which is like, get me in front of 20 people that look like the person I think is going to love this product. Let me get on the phone with them and see if they actually love the product, right?
Yeah, that's a great insight. 'Cause on projects I've been on or companies we've started, sometimes we'll look at, and maybe other people are like this too, especially on the software side, where sometimes you'll build it in the same flow of like how the user experience is. Like, okay, we're going to start with the sign up and log in, and then what's the next screen they see? Let's build that. Yep. And you're kind of going through the user experience step by step. So that's interesting how you're optimizing on the sticky part first, making the product good.
That's for 2 reasons, right? Yeah, because like, one, that's the part you're going to differentiate on. People aren't going to, you're not going to win on your sign up process. Your sign up process is just an accelerant. But the other thing is, I don't know what my sign up process should be until I figure out how you're going to use the thing, right? And so what's actually kind of nice is, if I manually sign you up, if I manually walk you through the setup steps and I do it myself, I start to really understand what's important in the setup process and what's not. I think the biggest mistake people make is they put too many things in their sign up process, right? We're probably still doing that, right? Where it's like, does this absolutely need to be in the sign up process for the person to get started? Or can they learn about it later, sort of thing, right? And if you think about, sometimes if you start from that, like, oh, we're going to build from the top of the funnel down, you start to, oh, well, you need this, all these things. Like, turns out actually the key aha moment happens when you get to this feature, and you only need these 2 things set up to get to that feature, right? So
Would you say probably most software products just need an email address?
Yeah, I think a lot of
Most.
us. We need access to your calendar. Right? We need to know what meetings you're in, right?
Okay.
And for us, you have to install a desktop app. So like we're a little heavier weight than most. But yeah, there's a lot of products that just ask you way too many things and want me to do
Yeah.
like it make me think a lot about things I don't know, right? Like, oh, do you want this, this, and this? Like, I don't know, man. Like,
Yeah. Because until
So
you've used it, yeah.
right, I think there's a lot of uh, once you have a sticky product, onboarding can be a differentiator, especially if you're a space where like there's a couple good products, right? Like I think that was a early differentiator for us. There were other people that had products similar to ours, but their onboarding process was way harder. Part of it being harder was they had pricing plans. You had to pick your pricing. We didn't make you do that. So that's part of the sign up process is, you think about all the cognitive load you make someone do. It's the more settings you ask them to configure, the more things you ask them to connect, the more decisions you ask them to make. That's actually what you're trying to eliminate in the sign up process. So once you have a good sticky product, then yeah, I think it's a great investment to invest in having a really good onboarding process. But it doesn't buy you anything until then.
So it seems like there's a theme with your kind of overall strategy, and at each phase, it's all about reducing friction at every step, whether it's getting people on board. You're saying, hey, we're going to give you money to sign up. There's no reason not to do this other than if you want to take the time or not.
Yeah. Yeah. Then we're going to get the truest signal on like, is this useful? Not, well, it's useful, but it's not worth that much money. That's their problem, right? Like pricing is hard. And so you might have pricing wrong and you're probably most likely wrong in the you're going to charge too much direction. And therefore, then there's a lot of people that would use this product, but you priced them out or they didn't know what it was worth and whatnot, right? So like I'm trying to reduce friction. What I'm also trying to do is reduce the number of variables so that I'm really just testing one variable, which is this the core of this thing, this AI thing, is this part actually useful? I'm trying to control out or is it the onboarding process bad or the marketing is bad or the pricing is wrong? I want to get rid of all that and just simplify it down to I'm going to talk to 30 people.
Okay.
And if I can get 15 of them if I handhold them through all the other stuff, I answer all their questions, whatnot, does the core product work? Right. Core product works. Let's go fix all those other things. Core product doesn't work. You didn't waste any time on that stuff, at least. Right. I think a lot of first time folks spend 80% of their time on all the crap that doesn't matter, figuring out pricing, figuring out onboarding, and then the core of the product is kind of an afterthought, right? Oh yeah, and it does this. Because they're so already convinced that the core product is good. I think the common mistake, especially for first time, especially startup entrepreneurs, is self-delusion about how good your product is. It's like, well, I had this idea for this thing it could do. I use it, but I use it because it's my baby. It's technically able to do these things, but it's not amazing at it. You wouldn't run and tell your friends about it. But it's good enough. I'm going to go now build the rest of it. It's not good enough until it's amazing. Your product, I wouldn't even bother building onboarding the rest of the stuff until it's like every person you talk to, or maybe not everyone, but 2/3 people we talk to are like, this is awesome. Like we had people, we knew we were doing something right. People were like, I want to pay you for this. I feel bad that I'm not paying you for this. This is so good. I should be paying you. That's what you want. Right.
Yeah.
So
then it
soapbox
kind of puts the power in your hands where you can kind of scale at will, at whatever speed you want.
Right. The other fun trick about this is it's a great way to hack investors.
Okay.
When it comes to raising investment, you want in order either really good numbers, no numbers, any other numbers. And that could be engagement metrics, it could be revenue metrics. You're much better fundraising on, we've got really great engagement metrics and no revenue. Then we've got okay engagement metrics and we have okay revenue. Not interesting, right? The other fun thing, right? And the other fun thing is, so again, going back to doing one thing well, it's I can say we don't have a ton of users, but our retention is great. I can raise on that. Okay, our retention is great. And we have, phenomenal number of users growth, but I've got no revenue. I can raise on that. And then when you actually do turn on the revenue later on, it's this hack, because most graphs they see, people monetize from the beginning. And so there's just a slow, steady ramp from the beginning. You're going to turn this on and the graph is going to go directly straight up because you're going to be able to monetize we got existing 1,000 users, and now we're going to sell them this add-on, and we already pretty confident 50% of them are going to buy it, right? And boom. And so now you've got this graph that at least gets you the meeting. It may not close the round, but at least get you the meeting because they're like, oh, something's happening here. They went from 0 to $1 million in revenue in 3 to 6 months because, and again, it's because you focused on it, and it's because you're building on top of this platform of, I've already got a bunch of users, right? Which is not what they're used to seeing. So that's how I kind of think about, like, it actually helps you with the fundraising stuff, paradoxically.
That's really cool. I mean, already we're 20 something minutes in here, and you've shared a lot of really good insights. Were there other roles or smaller companies or things that you started to kind of discover this kind of methodology or this strategy of going about the way that you are? Because it's not necessarily intuitive. I mean, I guess it is once you take a step back and, see what you're doing and why you're doing it. But how did you get to this insight, to this strategy, to this way of doing business or building a SaaS product?
That's a good question. I think, like I said, before I was doing SaaS products, I was doing some consulting, and I just had that mindset too. I think I've always had this, like, I always want to provide value before I ask for value type of thing. That always was kind of like a personal ethos of mine. I also think I was very fortunate to be surrounded by, small little like trivia part of my career is I actually worked in a company that was in the first batch of Y Combinator. Y Combinator is like really big incubator seed fund organization. They've done things like Dropbox and Airbnb. And I kind of lucked my way into working with, in the 15 years ago, the founders of like Reddit and the people that went on to be the founders of Twitch and whatnot. And I'm surrounded by all those folks, and every one of those folks were doing free, right? Twitch in the beginning, free. Reddit, free. Dropbox, free. And so it just seemed kind of natural. Like we were all everyone kind of coalesced around, this. And I don't know why we all coalesced around that. I think that was just kind of like, it's easy to make software where, it doesn't cost as much, but we just want people to use it. And I think there's a personal thing where, like, I get excited in the morning about people using my product. I get excited about getting emails with people saying, I love this product. I get somewhat excited about the revenue, but I actually don't get as excited about the revenue as I do about people love this product. And so it's a little bit of personal ethos. I think it's a little bit of like being surrounded by like people that were also realizing the strategy works really well. It's a little bit of both.
So yeah, being exposed to Y Combinator and all those epic companies, I mean, there's been so many iterations and fails and successes to where they've really honed kind of what actually works on the ground. So that makes sense. Okay. Would you recommend any books to other entrepreneurs or any kind of way of self-education or things that they might want to check out?
Yeah. So my favorite book, oh my gosh, I'm blanking on the name of it. Obvious. So my favorite business book is kind of a curveball. It's about positioning, which feels like a very niche marketing thing to worry about. It's by this woman, April Dunford. It's called Obviously Awesome. I think it's if you're thinking about how to build any sort of product, I think it's actually a really fundamental thing, because I think it's really important to figure out what are you actually selling to people and how do you explain it to them. And that's what this book is all about. And how do you think about you versus competition? How do you get in the minds of your users and understand how they're going to look at it? So that's my like inside baseball kind of like, there's all the core ones. Like I love the Bill Walsh book, The Score Takes Care of Itself, which is all about like, don't worry about the big metrics. Don't worry. He doesn't care about the football score. He cares about doing all the little things right. Like that's like kind of like my management ethos. Obviously there's all those 0 to 1s and all these other short books.
Yeah.
But one you probably won't hear other people reference, I think is fantastic, is Obviously Awesome by April Dunford.
Okay, cool. We'll put that in the show notes for sure. Richard, this has been great. I really needed to hear several of the things you said. It's a really interesting perspective, and I think it clarifies with the reasoning you gave for the way you go about your strategy. It really clarifies a path for SaaS entrepreneurs, especially, of how they need to approach things, and gives them something to think about. So again, thank you so much for being here with us. Where would you like people to connect with you or check out what you're up to?
Yeah, I only have one functioning social media, and that's LinkedIn. So
Okay.
if you'd like to connect, you can message me there. I'm sometimes a little backed up on my messages, but I try to get to everyone within a week. Yeah, and please try out Fathom and let me know what you think. Always love product feedback. It could always be better. So if you have any ideas how to be better, I'd love to hear them. Who knows? Maybe I'll send you a $25 gift card for it because we pay people for great feedback too. So yeah, just look at Richard
Awesome.
White on LinkedIn. Look for Fathom AI meeting assistant. You'll find me. It's got a little. You'll find me with a little blue avatar. So that's me.
Cool. All right, everybody. We'll see you on the next episode of the First Customers Podcast.